Green Angel by Alice Hoffman, pages 15 to 21. I ran down the hill so fast, my clothes were torn to shreds on the brambles. My heart was in my mouth. I thought of my mother, measuring out green beans on a scale with her gentle hands. I thought of my father, who could whistle so many tunes with such sweetness, every variety of bird in our garden would answer. I thought of my sister, whose hair was white as snow, the wild girl who never stopped to listen, always the opposite of me. My sister, who was as familiar as the moon up above. Changeable, yes, but always there for me to depend upon. Ashes had swept across the river in black whirlwinds. I ran to escape them, through the yard, into the house. But there was no escape. Embers flew in through the open windows and set the ends of my hair on fire. I wrapped a wet towel around my head. Steam rose in billows from beneath the towel, and I smelled like smoke. But worst of all, the embers had flown into my eyes. My eyes burned so badly I grew dizzy with the pain. My sister's little dog had followed me home. He knew something was wrong, and now he barked at the sky, the world, the open door, which I ran to slam shut as I tried to stop the flow of embers. I fastened the bolt, then held my hands over my ears. I didn't want to hear the roar of the fire, so far away across the river. I wanted silence, peace, blue skies, yesterday. But no matter what, I could hear it still. No matter what, it was burning. I crawled under the dining room table, smelling like smoke and half blinded by cinders. Little bits of hot embers flew under the door. Onion followed and lay shivering in my lap. I was Green, who was too shy to speak. Green, too angry to say goodbye. Green, who was always waiting for the future, biding her time. Now the future was here, and the silver city across the river was on fire, and I was hiding under the table, where I stayed until darkness fell. After a while, I couldn't hear the fire anymore. The dog whimpered, but I hushed him. I could barely see, but my ears were good. I was the one who could hear the wisteria unfolding. I could hear the sweet peas climbing the fence, the asparagus rising through the soil. Now I was listening harder than ever. I was waiting for my family to come home. All they had to do was run from the fire. All they needed was to cross the river, swim if they must, crawl if need be. Find their way home in the dark, in the whirlwinds, in the burning embers. Surely they would appear if only I waited long enough. I was patient Green, after all. Green, who knew how to listen. They were in the city for only a single day. Luck couldn't be as bad as that, could it? Was that the way the future worked? Unknowable, unchangeable, always uncertain. They might have gone to the city the day before or the day after. They might have been stopped by the rising of the drawbridge, by a bee sting, by a sudden storm. They might have not gone at all. But they were there when it happened, and I was not. It was days before I stopped listening for them. My mother's footsteps, my father's whistle, my sister's wild laughter. I had already decided that I would not allow myself to cry until they came home safely. Tears would be an admission that they were gone, that I could stop listening. I wasn't ready for that. Every morning I rose from my fitful sleep in the bed I'd made beneath the table, expecting to find a trail of my family's footsteps on our dusty floor. I would embrace them and tell them how much I loved them. I would tell them that I'd meant to hug them and kiss them goodbye. Only then would I let the tears wash over my burning eyes. But the days wore on, and I heard nothing. Dark, fiery days that were silent as stone. No one came home. No one called out my name. Finally, I went to open the door. I could smell burning metal. I could see sparks in the trees drifting like fireflies. All of those white pages on which I had planned to write my future were burning around the edges, first red, then black, then blue with flame. My sister's dog refused to step past the threshold. He peed in a corner, he trembled and howled. Poor Onion was missing Aurora. His howls were like mourning cries. I couldn't listen to him, so I went outside and I looked up at the black sky. My eyes were still burning. My vision was blurry. But even I could tell there were no stars. Ashes were falling down, a soft black rain. The white moths had dropped from above. They'd scattered like leaves, lining the stone path to our door, gleaming like black opals. I found my way back to the top of the hill. There was only a handful of silver on the other side of the river now. Pale beacons, pale light. I thought about how time had always stretched out before me, those empty white pages that were mine alone. I thought about how hot it had been at the moment when it happened, how everything around me had been green as far as the eye could see, how the sky had been so cloudless, not even a puff of white. As I walked back to my house in the dark, making my way past the brambles, I noticed that the songbirds, who were usually asleep in their nests at this hour, were fluttering nervously from tree to tree. It was then I realized it wasn't nighttime at all, but sooty daylight, noon perhaps. The sun had been shadowed by ashes. Now I understood. The world as I knew it was gone forever. What I had thought was the moon up above, as familiar as Aurora's face, was in fact the cloudy sun. On this day, even the circle of light looked so much smaller than it once had, a teardrop in the sky.